for me.
Okay.
What time does it start?
Okay. So
7:50.
okay, our discussion today, we continue with the subject of the what do we call the binding of Sarah, right? As you commented, the binding of Sarah is not mentioned in the Torah. That's not something that we read about, but the binding of Yitzhak is. So when I say that we talk about the binding of Sarah, obviously I mean to talk about the question of where was Sarah? Where was Sarah during the Akedah? What was she doing? Is she like non-existent? What is her story? So in the handout, again,
So killing of children is restricted to men only, I guess.
what?
Killing of children.
Oh, killing of children, yeah. So no, but so let's continue with the binding of Sarah, the handout that I gave last week, and I want to show you. I want to show you on page 3 of this handout. We read this. We start with Sarah in the Midrash. The Midrash did care about Sarah's voice. She's not mentioned. There's nothing that she says about the Akedah, but the Midrash does speak about that. And here we read, Amar Avraham, ma ya'aseh, im agale leSarah, nashim da'atan kalan alehen bedavar katan. That's not very respectful, right? Avraham said, if I tell Sarah, women are light-minded, even when it's a minor issue. Kol sheken bedavar gadol kazeh, even more with such a major undertaking. So da'atan kalan means that she would not be willing to accept it. She will oppose it. As they almost, deal with Avraham and Sarah as, any couple. They have quarrels. Every time I tell her something, she doesn't agree. Even the little things.
Is light-headed.
I know, yeah. It's yeah. But now it's such a big thing. She's definitely going to say no. So what choice do I have? If I don't tell her and I kidnap the boy, so the Midrash already puts the sting here. It's not imlo galela and I will walk away. It's according to the Hachamim, the commandment in the 10 Commandments, lo tignov, you shall not steal, mean you shall not kidnap. So that's why the Midrash says, what you're doing here, you're stealing a person and you're going to kill him. There are two sins, not to mention, maybe it's Shem Hashem Elohecha Lashav, maybe you carry Hashem's name in vain if you do such a thing. And it says, what is going to happen? If she doesn't see him, she's going to kill herself. Think of Sarah as a woman who's waiting to have a child for so many years. She's hovering around him. She doesn't let him go anywhere. And now he's out of her sight. What does he do? Amar la at yodat, this boy is already grown up and he's not been educated yet. But lo nechnach is also a rite of passage, right? He has to be inducted into the service of God. There's a place a little too far, but let me take the boy there. And she says, Amralo, lech leshalom, go in peace. That's the Midrash.
Is that a white lie?
Is that a white? That's not a white at all. That's a very problematic lie. The Midrash, this is the question of the Midrash. How did Abraham reconcile the commandment of Hashem with Sarah being the mother? And she's part of it. She is the mother. He cannot do such a thing without her consent. So there's no consent. So in the Sephardic liturgy, which you're familiar with, we read before the Tkiyat Shofar, there's a poem called Oked V'Ne'ekad V'Mizbeah, which is a very, very powerful poem. I think for many of us, this is next to the shofar. This is the highlight, right? This is the highlight of the whole tefillah of Rosh Hashanah.
It depends where you.
Right, depends where you pray. Yeah, of course. Depends who's the Hazan and all that. But right. But so some of us know the whole text, but I highlighted only several lines from that piyut. The author, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel ibn Abbas, traveled between Spain, Iraq, and Morocco, lived in the 12th century, same time as Rabbi Ephraim of Regensburg, whose poem we read last time, the one who uses imagery of the crown of thorns and the crown of fire. Rabbi Ephraim speaks about Abraham and Yitzhak going to perform the act with great enthusiasm, without second thoughts, and Yitzhak even encourages Abraham to do it. This poet grew up and was educated under the rule of Islam, where this idea of martyrdom was unheard of. I mean, they did hear of it from Christians who committed martyrdom in Spain under the Umayyad, but it was uncommon among Muslims and uncommon among Jews. So he has a different perspective. He comes from a point of view of the Midrash, and not directly, at least not in the beginning, criticizes Abraham. So he takes the Midrash. Amar le Sarah, ki hamudech Yitzhak, he told Sarah, your beloved Yitzhak, gadal velo lamad avodat shachak. Elech ve'oreu asher lo elchak. He grew up, but he did not learn the service of Hashem. Let me go and teach him God's way. And what does Sarah answer? Amra lecha adon, aval al tirhak. So she answers, go, sir, go, my master, right, Adon, but don't go too far. Now in the Midrash, he says that the place is far. In the poem, she says, don't go too far. There's a double meaning here. Don't go to the extreme. Don't do something that you're going to regret for. Ana yehi libech be'el boter. Don't worry, trust God. Right? So the poet confronts the man of God, Abraham, who trusts God. He says, whatever happens, it will be okay. And Sarah, who represents the human side, the emotions, and she says, something is wrong here. I don't know what is happening. So the poet continues to describe their journey. They go together. They reach the mountain. And then Yitzhak speaks to his father. Vayan Yitzhak, Vayomer le'aviv kacha, Aye Adoni se asher kahalacha. Ha'at beyom ze datcha shocheach. It's at velo ata for the rhyme. Should be ata in the masculine. But it's also possible, because of what Yitzhak is asking here, where is the lamb, right? The word at in when addressing a masculine or someone we think of in masculine appears once in the Torah when Moshe addresses God. Ve'im kacha at oseli horgeni narog, following the act of the golden calf. Moshe turns to Hashem and says, if this is what you're going to do to me, to not forgive the people, kill me. But he refers to God with at, which means you in the feminine. And the rabbis comment on that, Tashku hokin nekeva. Moshe became weak like a woman. Or he says that Hashem is weak like a woman. I'm sorry about this. It's again sort of a sexist, chauvinist thing to say, but that's how they view the move from the masculine to the feminine. So maybe Yitzhak, when Yitzhak turns to Abraham and says, "At b'yom zeh chashochea," it shows some kind of weakness, or a crack in the wall of this conviction that we're going to do that.
But when he said to God, call it feminine, but look at it that way, he gave birth to the Jewish people. So
yes, no, that's you're already moving ahead to the realm of
look at the feminine side.
Definitely, there's a feminine. The Kabbalists corrected that. The mystics came and introduced the Shekhinah as the feminine aspect of God, because if we're created in the image of God, we are all contained in Him, men and women, right? So, but in this case, what happens? Yitzhak turns to Abraham and says, where is the lamb required by law? Fine, that's like the Torah. But he adds this line, Ha'at b'yom zeh datcha shocheach. Have you forgotten the laws? And I think that is also, if you've forgotten your religion, and I think here also there's a double meaning. What you forgot is not only the lamb, what you forgot is that you're not supposed to kill. Here's where the poet starts pushing towards Abraham, asking, why are you doing that? Dafku, so that goes to the next line. I'm skipping a line. Dafku b'sharei rachamim liftoah. Haben lehi zavach, there's a typo here. Ve'ha'av lizboach. Yeah. Haben lehi zavach ve'ha'av lizboach. In the English, I translate correctly. They knocked on the gates of mercy. The son to be slaughtered, and the father to slay, trusting in God and relying on His mercy. So, unlike the poet Rabbi Haim of Regensburg, we read that they are doing it in a, speedy, expeditious manner. Here, they're knocking on the gates of heaven.
Is it dafku, the past tense, or difku?
No, dafku. It's past tense. It's a past tense, yeah. Dafiku b'sharayim liftoah. It's a very powerful. It was like, think of the image of they standing there. The gates are locked. Like on the high holidays, we talk about open the gates, and the Ilah is closing the gates. So they're trying to get through to God. And it's almost an accusation. Why are you doing this to us, right? We need to get through to you for you to understand that it is not right. And those are knocking on the gates. One of them is the son who is about to be slaughtered. And the father is going to slaughter, but now he's also begging for mercy, meaning he also maybe starts to understand that it's not right. And again, you have to rely on God. ויהי מאור יומם בעינם ליל, והמון דמעיו, או כזה והמון דמעם, נוזלים בחיל, עין במר בוכה, ולב שמח. Daylight turned night for them. Their tears were streaming mightily, the eye bitterly crying, and the heart joyful. איך זה יכול להיות, right? How is this possible? So, I think beautiful description of the struggle between faith and emotion. Abraham feels that his heart tells him, I have to fulfill God's commandment. He's even excited because he's doing what God asked him to do. But on the other hand, he's crying. He realizes that that's not right. There's a contradiction between your emotions and your faith. I would say your logic, because both of them are emotions. So it's the eyes and the heart. And for both of them, day turned into night. So none is happy with what is going to happen. So that joy is maybe only Abraham's joy for fulfilling the mitzvah, but he's still in deep sorrow for going to do that. Here, the next paragraph, in some of the traditions, the community, tell me if you're familiar with it, everybody reads together up to this point. Sometimes they make more a faster tune, which goes like that. And they said the whole thing like that, the whole kahal. And now
we say it like you're going to say now,
right,
the whole thing.
Right. So the Iraqis, the Babylon tradition, which I grew up in, is a little slower. It's like, so that is another tradition. But even the Yerushalmi tradition that reads like with the fast tune that I praised in the beginning, when they get to these two stanzas, the Hazan takes his time and elaborates on it, and he just sings it solo. I'll just give you 1 or 2 lines of that, and then we'll read it, and then you'll get back to the tune. It goes like this. Emi kisesona pana haben asher yolada לשבעים שנה. That's not I don't have the voice to do it during the class. This is the Yerushalmi tune. What happens here? Yitzhak turns to his father and he says, tell my mother that her joy has fled. Sihu is in the plural, but he's talking to his father. He says, tell my mother that her son, her great joy, is gone. Haben asher yalda ל-90 shana. Again, my type weird, sorry. ל-90, no, I had to. I
Yeah,
translated correctly. The son, I wrote it from memory. The son she bore at 90, the son that she gave birth to at 90, she was 90 years old, Haya le'esh ulmachelet mana. He has become fire, was devoured by the knife. He says, where shall I seek comfort to her? Where? Oh, there's someone at the door.
The door was open when I came in.
The door's open.
No, we
Was
can
that-
open it from here.
No, I was open when I came in. Last time was
Michael,
locked.
yeah.
Maybe they locked it.
That's it. She left. But he went.
He went there.
אנחנו מגיעים לנו קצת שונה.
איך המנגינה שלכם?
שיחו לאימי כי
ששונה פנה
לבן אשר ילדה.
כן, זה עיבוד של זה, right, it's a different version. Okay. Okay.
But also very, very slow.
Yeah, very slow.
Takes forever.
It takes, right. So those two stanzas, why they go, like I said, slower.
This is on Yom Kippur, right?
This on Rosh Hashanah, before blowing the shofar. And have in mind, it's amazing that you have it before blowing the shofar. You're about, this is the most solemn moment of Rosh Hashanah. And the poem that was chosen, okay, and the poem that was chosen to lead into the services, it's true, it speaks about the Akedah of Yitzhak, and according to tradition, the horns of the ram were used for the shofar, but the theme that the author brings into that poem is, this should not have happened. He questions the Akedah, and that's what you read before Tkiat Shofar. This would not have passed, I'm sorry to tell you. It would not have happened in Ashkenaz synagogue, that kind of like, wait, doesn't happen, right? We accepted, that's it. But this is a very singular piece. So now Yitzhak talks to Abraham and he says, tell my mother that her joy is gone, and the son that and the son to whom she gave birth at the age of 90 has been devoured by the knife. Where Anna emtzala menachem Anna? Where shall I seek comfort for her? Where? Tsar li le'em tivke v'tityapeach. I feel for my mother who's going to cry and weep. But now, think of that. He speaks in the plural, but who is really talking to? He's talking to Abraham. What does he tell? What does he tell Abraham?
Don't do that.
Talk to my mother.
He says, he tells him, I think that's how I see it. He tells him, okay, you're happy now, you're going to do that, and then what? You fulfill the mitzvah. You're going to go back home. What are you going to tell mom? What are you going to tell her? Did you think about that? You left with me, you're going to come back empty-handed, and she'll ask you, what happened with the child? And you'll say, I just slaughtered him. Or, let's say you're not going to say that. Let's say you're going to say, he fell into the fire pit. He doesn't say you slaughtered him. He fell into the fire pit. He died somehow. Can you imagine her sorrow as a bereft mother? You are going to face it. That's what he's telling him. This is a one-time action, an act of faith. You're enthusiastic, even you believe in it, you're crying, but you believe that's with everything. But you are going to face the consequences every day, every night. This is what you're going to face. And if this is not enough, he goes on. He says, my words cry out from the knife, the humming knife. It says, please sharpen the knife so I don't. So it doesn't say why. In the original midrash, the midrash that says, Yitzhak says, please sharpen the knife so the sacrifice would be kosher. Because there'd be no, God forbid, like that's really the concern. And there's a lot of detail in the midrash about, he bound him so he doesn't move, because if he moves and the knife goes to the wrong place, it's not going to be kosher. It's really, I don't say pushing the idea, ad absurdum, because you can't talk about kosher shechita when you kill a person. Lehavdil, you remember the story of a man who was very ill, and the rabbi said, whatever illness it was, back in the day, he says the only remedy that he has to eat from the liver of a pig or a dog, whatever it was. Maybe it was a dog. They believe it was for rabies, right? And the man was very, very observant, never ate anything not kosher. And he was really shocked by that. So he asked the rabbi, okay, I understand I have to eat, a piece of, the pig's liver or something. Can I at least get a shohet to slaughter it correctly? And the rabbi says, forget it. A pig will never be kosher, right? It doesn't matter how you slaughter it. So here again, you can't apply the laws of shechita here. So I think the poet takes it differently. He says, sharpen it so the death will be swift. Vet ma'asari hazek, tie me, bind me tightly, so I won't move, because I might try to object. But remember that, ve'et yekad yekod bifsari, and once the fire consumes my flesh, kach imecha hanishar me'afari, right? It's goosebumps, no? When you read that, like to try to imagine that. The Santa is to take whatever is left of me, show it to mom, and say, ve'emor l'sara ze litzhak reach. It's mind blowing, right? How did you say now? Now you hear it. Gid, how do you say? I'll join you. How do you sing it? Say hulemi. Yeah.
Makes you want to cry.
He is.
Yeah.
He is.
Very
You got to do
powerful.
that. It's very powerful.
Very powerful.
So this is an amazing, amazing poem. The completely different point of view.
But it brings memories.
And it brings memories, right? Definitely. For
That happened.
so now I booked you for Rosh Hashanah. Yeah, they will have this year. They will have by patience. We'll talk about it before they'll realize what you're singing, what you're reading. Reading this poem without understanding it is just really okay. It's good music. Enjoy the tunes, the tradition, but really understanding what it says. What it really is an essential question that goes to every religious act that you're going to perform. That's an extreme act, killing a person, killing your child. But Yitzhak is the core. Why does it call Akedat Yitzhak? Because he's really the core of the dilemma. He tells Abraham, who do you go with? Do you go with your faith? Or do you go with your heart? Do you go with your emotions? Could you be an observant Jew if you only serve Hashem and you disregard everyone around you? Who is the closest person to you besides Yitzhak? It's Sarah. How could you ignore her? How could she not be included in the process of your religious decision? And that is when you think about it, you come to Rosh Hashanah, people look back and they say, wow, I'm such a good person. I did this and I did this and I did that. And the Torah asks, like, how about others? Were they included in your, circle of decisions? I used to do this exercise. I did several places. I would ask people on Erev Kippur, people ask, some communities have the tradition of, the Gabbai says, please forgive each other. And everybody says we forgave each other. Yeah, it's very nice. So I asked in the synagogue, is there anyone here who feels that he wronged another person but never asked for forgiveness? Nobody raised their hands. Okay. said, is there anyone here who feels that he was wronged by another person and that person never asked for forgiveness? Have the shul like that, hands up. And I said, really, it's amazing that all the offenders went to another synagogue
Right.
and we got only the victims, right? How is it possible? But what happens? Nobody feels, we don't think that we offended someone. And you could sit with the most observant, most from people, and no one even realizes that they
Sometimes you
might have
don't
hurt
know.
someone's feeling.
Sometimes you don't
Right? So
know.
those are little
Yeah,
things,
that's-
but that, right? So that's the extreme. So I at one point, and it's not here, I was trying to look at it because really I'm fascinated by the story. So I toyed with the idea of what would have happened, and you don't have it in front of you. I'll read it if you don't mind. I was wondering what would happen if we would find it, Sarah's voice, right? So I started writing her diary, trying to write a diary for Sarah to see what would she say. So I'll read it to you, okay? This is my writing, trying to figure out how would Sarah's diary look like if she ever wrote one. So I started writing. She speaks about her struggles and having children and bringing Hagar in and sending her away. And then she speaks about the day that Yitzhak was born. And she says, back then I thought God was on my side. I was so happy to have Abraham all to myself and to see that he finally realized that he only has one son. That's after sending Ishmael away. But then she says, but all that is gone. I don't think I will ever be happy again. I wake up screaming from nightmares just to live through another day of eyes wide open anxiety. I check on Yitzhak. I check on Yitzhak constantly. I want to make sure that he is safe and that he's not taken from me suddenly, while my thoughts keep going back to that horrible day, exactly 1 year ago. But I can't keep it anymore. That's why I dug you out and sat down to write again. That's after she abandoned the diary for a while. It all started on that dreadful night when Abraham told me casually over dinner that he might take Yitzhak with him for some kind of a field trip on the following day. I reminded him that in the 6 years which have passed since the world first saw the shining smile of my baby, there was never a moment when we were apart. He said that he knows that and that I should take a break and that I shouldn't worry too much and that the kid is safe with him and that he needs to start learning some practical skills from his father. He said that there is this new theory that fathers and sons should spend some quality time alone for bonding. Bonding, had I only known. We left the matter at that without me voicing consent for the trip, but when I woke up the next morning shortly after sunrise, Avraham was gone, and with him my treasure. I ran outside to ask the servants if they have seen my son. They said that they haven't, but that 2 servants are also missing, as well as Abraham's donkey, and several tools, including a slaughtering knife. At that moment, I didn't realize what was the purpose of the field trip. No, I don't think that I would have ever imagined that this thing, which I can't even write, is possible. I thought he was taking him on a hunting and camping excursion, and I was fuming. He's only 6 years old, for crying out loud. We don't need another maidservant's son shooting and hunting. That is what I thought when I set out to look for them. Had I known that when he said bonding, he meant binding, and that the knife was meant for my own son, I would have caught up with them earlier. But as alarmed as I was, I didn't think that the danger looming over my dear baby's head comes from his father and not from wild animals. 3 days. 3 days I was wandering, looking for them, asking travelers for information. They probably laughed at me, thought I was out of my mind, a 96-year-old woman, hysterical, alone on the dangerous roads, claiming to search for a lost toddler and his father. But I finally got to the land of Moriah, and there, at the foot of a mountain, I saw 2 of my servants dallying in the sun, chewing some leaves and chatting, carefree and relaxed as if the world has not come to an end. I shook them up, screaming at them, "Why did you go without telling me? Am I not? I am the lady of the household. You don't do things behind my back." They were clearly taken aback and muttered some silly excuses, but I was already in the next phase. Where is my child? Where's my precious treasure? Where did he go with his father? They seemed surprised that I was so upset and said that they've been traveling for 3 days with Abraham, and he was searching for the perfect place to worship God. When they arrived at the place, he told them he got very excited, they said, the way he used to act when God spoke to him. He has him to wait for him there, and he starts scaling the mountain with Yitzhak, apparently with the aim of building an altar. An altar, I asked, are you sure about that? They replied positively, saying that Avraham tied the wood fire bundle to Yitzhak's back, and with the knife and torch in hand, went up the mountain. For a moment, I was dumbfounded. But the animal, I exclaimed, what about the animal? Did you catch a mountain goat, or did you bring a lamb? No, Mr. Sarah, they answered, there was no animal. I think that was the moment when the enormity of the situation dawned on me. For 3 days running or dragging my feet in that never-ending journey, I probably knew deep inside what was happening, but I refused to believe it. I should have known the moment he was gone, because otherwise, why would he disappear like that so early in the morning without even saying goodbye? My knees buckled, my heart sank, and for what seemed like eternity, I just stood there frozen, shaken, unable to move, drained of energy, drained of life. I finally came back to myself and started running up the mountain. I don't know how I found the strength. I guess it is mother's love. Climbing the mountain, sobbing and crying out my beloved child's name, I made it to the top, only to see my husband raising his knife-holding hand over the helpless tiny figure of my son, bound like an animal and lying on a layer of firewood. Yes, you read correctly. My husband, the father of my child, Abraham the prophet, defender of truth, an educator par excellence, was about to wield his knife and take the life of another human being, who was none other than my precious Yitzhak. I screamed his name one last time and blacked out. I woke up with the sweet, worried voice of Yitzhak. Mommy, wake up, don't sleep so much. Was I dreaming or did I live through a nightmare? Cautiously opened my eyes just to sleep to see Yitzhak's beautiful little face. His eyes lit up when he saw me, and a wide smile spread over his face. His laughter, ringing like heavenly bells, clearly showed me how relieved he was. Okay, so that is, I'm going to read the whole thing. But that
Very nice.
is the thing, try to think like from that point of view, like of Sarah, like Sarah, if she were there, right? What does she see? And he doesn't tell her. Yeah, that is a very powerful picture. That's a scary story. So when I say the binding of Sarah, it's like this is really more than anyone, the one who's being bound, the one whose life is going to be shattered by this is Sarah, alongside, of course, Yitzhak. There's no question. So going back to the poem, right, the last paragraph, when Yitzhak starts talking to Avraham and he says, talk to my mother, how are you going to face her? How are you going to live your life? The author presents this really a very powerful theological question of how do you make choices when you lead your religious life. So he took the Akedah, and you could say that he turned it upside down, right? But really, maybe he brought it to reality. He brought it to reality to maybe that's what Hashem, maybe that's what Hashem was waiting for Avraham to do. He was waiting to say, no, it doesn't make sense. That even obedience and religion and faith, it has limits. That we have to calculate, we have to factor in the human condition. And unfortunately, you hear it a lot. And you talk to people, observant people, and when you talk about halakha, and you say, "But what about that emotion, or that those consequences?" I say, halakha doesn't count emotions. Halakha is not about how you feel. Yeah, I give you an example that is related to killing. One of my nephews went in a different way. His father sent to a more, you could say, extreme view yeshiva in Israel. And in Israel, there's the polarization between secular and non. My grandfather wouldn't even allow us to use the word secular, Hiloni or Udati. He said everybody's shomer mitzvot, everybody's observant. But what they call in Israel secular and religious, the polarization is very, very noted. And the rabbis they like it. They want to create a division. Some rabbis, so they tell their students, a secular Jew is less than an animal. Some people say that. I had a side issue when I lived in Petah Tikva for 2 years. I heard one boy calling a friend a goy. his friend, he called him a goy. So I called the boy over. I said, why are you calling him a goy? He's wearing a kippah. I mean, even if he's not wearing a kippah, but you see the kippah on his head. He said, because he has a TV at home. He's a goy. So I went and I spoke to the father of the child. I said, why are you telling your son that the kid is a goy? He says, yeah, because he has a TV. I don't want my son to be his friend. I said, okay, so if the boy with the kippah but the TV at home is a goy, what do you call someone who is not religious at all, in your opinion, is not observant? He says, it's an animal. And what about the goy? Oh, the goy is dead already. Like, this is a terrible, hierarchy that they created. So I spoke to my nephew, forgot exactly about those issues, about, why do you harbor such a hatred toward? And he says, no, according to halakha, if you see a hiloni, if you see a secular, like non-Shabbat observant person walking in the street, you should kill him. So what are you? You should kill a person just because he's not observant? He says, yes, that's the halakha. We just don't do it because it's dangerous. He was 17 at the time. It's like, I said, so I didn't argue with, he said, I saw it in a book, a halakha book. I said, I doubt that you saw it. But let me ask you this question. So let's say you walk down the street. We lived on Rashbam Street in Yerushalayim. So as you walk from him, Rehov Rashbam, Rehov Rashi, right? And you see a nice family coming towards you, father, mother, couple of children, and they're not observant. Would you just go and kill them? You feel no remorse, no hesitation? He says emotions have nothing to do with it. This is what the Torah wants. This is what I have to do. So that is really shocking. This is like where this extreme approach could take you. To his credit, as much as he could get credit, he came. I pressed him a lot about that, and I said, I want to see the book. Where did you get it from? He came 2 days later. He says, I misunderstood the book. I said, good luck. We're really lucky that I was able to talk to you. But the fact that he even considered it possible. But one more thing about the poem before you have to go. Another interesting fact about this poem: the author had a son who converted to Islam. And it was very harsh for him. Some scholars even think that he wrote the poem about the binding of Yitzhak as a eulogy to mourn the conversion of his son, but it doesn't work because he questions the Akedah. And it probably was written before his son converted to Islam. What is possible is that because he has so many doubts about that very essential concept in Judaism, that his son took it a step further. Mm-hmm. And there were Jews, just like under Christianity, there were Jews.
Has the same thing.
Right. Right. It has Akedat Ishmael. Right.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this combined with maybe better conditions under Islamic law and the academies where people could go, that's the time where the first encyclopedias were written by the Muslim scholars. So if you really wanted to be steeped in learning, not Jewish learning, you went to with the Muslim scholars. So to me, it is amazing that the authors of the Siddur included this poem before the blowing of the shofar. It deals with such a fragile issue, such an important issue, and completely changes it from the traditional view. And the author has a son who converted to Islam, and yet we're willing to read it before the blowing of the shofar. I think it says a lot about what used to be among the Sfaradim, at least. We used to have some openness, more mind openness, that now is sort of being slowly eroded, and we have to bring it back. You have to be willing to ask questions. Those are tough questions, but the author, Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel ben Abbas, was willing to ask them. It's a legacy that he left with us, and that's a very important message of Rosh Hashanah.
But it does raise the level of emotion.
Definitely. Oh, you can't read that and understand that.
Exactly. So you're getting ready
Totally.
for the shofar.
So that's true.
Yeah.
I think, to me, even before I fully understood the meaning of that poem in the theological context, it was always very emotional because growing up in Israel, I would think about the bereaved families, people who died in battle, people who died in terrorist attacks. You think about that. Are those the sacrifices that God asks us to bring? So it definitely hones your emotions as you prepare for blowing the shofar. And that's, I think, a good message for Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
We'll conclude here. We're staying on physically. Thank you.
This is the most difficult passage in the Torah, I think.
It is.
And,
It is. Good night. Goodbye, everyone. Yeah, I'm just telling you those.